Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Monix. Welcome to the next webinar in the MDOT in Motion webinar series. Maryland Department of Planning and Maryland Department of Transportation are joined today by partners dedicated to safer transportation options for children, with a specific focus on Anne Arundel County and Annapolis. Today, we are excited to discuss the Safe Routes to School program and the successful models for promoting active transportation in Maryland's youth. We're going to, there we go. Our today's webinar is eligible for 1.5 AICP credits. The certificate maintenance or CM number is 933400. You can log your credits on your AIPCP credit maintenance dashboard on the American Planning Association website. I will be sending a completion certificate within the week of this webinar. You will receive it from the email certs@gutenbergcerts.com. Following Maryland state policy, third-party AI assistants are prohibited and have been blocked from this webinar. Audio echo often occurs when you have two Zoom windows open. If you are experiencing echo, try closing one to remove it. Attendees have been muted but can ask questions in the Q&A. We will reserve most questions for the end, but panelists will also try to answer some in the Q&A panel. Please use the Q&A function and not the chat function to ask questions. The chat should be reserved for sharing resources with one another and enriching the learning environment. Attendees can enable closed captioning in the toolbar. This session is being recorded. The recording will be available within 2 weeks on MDOT's Office of Active Transportation and Micromobility newsletter and event archive website. Governor Moore signed Maryland's new 8 planning principles into law on April 8th, 2025, and they became effective on October 1st, 2025, replacing the previous 12 visions. Transportation and equity are the 2 principles which today's webinar will emphasize. Last December, the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet published the Sustainable Growth Implementation Guide, which describes each principle, the benefits of incorporating the principles into local and state planning, key performance indicators the state will use to measure progress, and case examples from around the state of the principles in action. The principles are designed to emphasize Maryland's land use and development priorities while encouraging local and regional flexibility. Before we head into our main topic, I want to highlight an opportunity happening in Maryland. Nominations are now open for the Maryland Sustainable Growth Awards. Since 2013, the Maryland Department of Planning and the Maryland Sustainable Growth Commission have honored the outstanding people, projects, and policies driving sustainable growth throughout Maryland. Whether it's a dedicated champion, a cutting-edge green building project, or an innovative local policy, these awards recognize work that sets the standard for our communities across 5 core areas: impact, replicatability, collaboration, innovation, and endurance. If you or an organization you work with are helping shape a more sustainable future for Maryland, we want to elevate that work with a Sustainable Growth Award presented by the Sustainable Growth Subcabinet and the Governor's citation. We have a short trailer to showcase this program. And so we're gonna switch to that. So sorry, having technical difficulties with that. Give me 1 second. There we are. Right.
Daniel, we're not hearing the sound.
Let's see here. I apologize for that. Should be hearing. Right. And definitely want to make sure we're sharing that.
In a world where sustainability is the only path forward, one state answered the call.
Thank you all so much, and good morning.
The toolkits are literally no. I want the blooper roll.
Maybe we don't take ourselves too seriously, but it's no joke when it comes to our planet.
It's kind of like the Oscars and the Grammys and the Nobel Peace Prize, and kind of like all wrapped in together because, you know, the beautiful thing about these awards is, like all great awards, it is not given, it's earned.
In Maryland, we embrace and advance all three pillars of sustainability in unison. In the vision, well, visions are big, right? But you got to get stuff done too. This is a way for everyone to feel confident about being able to speak the language, to show up, to be part of the process. And so we get everybody engaged.
It's time to honor the dreamers, the innovators, the doers.
All right. So thanks for that video.
Right.
We've just dropped some links into the chat. Click on those links to review the criteria, submit your application. You'll have through the end of September 30th to be specific, to submit your nominations. So just make sure we get them before then. And I will go ahead and hand it over to Meg. And thank you so much.
Thanks, Daniel, and thanks to the Maryland Department of Planning for being our partner and really setting the vision and laying the groundwork for our state to plan for sustainable growth. You know, I couldn't plan quite how much I wanted to my level of embarrassment from my little cameo there in the trailer. But I got my wish. I got to see the blooper roll, and it was a huge honor for us last year to be awarded for our transportation trails strategic plan as really setting a vision for sustainable growth. So definitely encourage everyone to check out more about the sustainable growth implementation guide and how we're honoring work that follows that vision. But back to today's topic of safe routes back to school. At the Maryland Department of Transportation, we know that multimodal travel really contributes to all 8 of the planning principles for sustainable growth. But throughout today's webinar, really want people to think about how transportation can be made to be more energy efficient and give reliable access to not only Marylanders, but across the nation. And also equity. When we talk about kids getting to school, they're some of our most vulnerable roadway users. You know, they're not eligible for a driver's license, and that they're making these journeys every single day to and from school. So we need to do our best at the state to make sure that they can have a safe journey to school. So this webinar is part of our MDOT in Motion series. This is a series of webinars, of email updates and newsletters, as well as educational opportunities that we offer through the MDOT Office of Active Transportation and Micromobility. If you join our listserv, which you can sign up for on this survey link, you'll get all the updates from MDOT in Motion. Our goal here is to support a more connected and sustainable transportation network, to highlight our multimodal programs, and to expand knowledge about complete streets and safety principles. If there's a topic you'd like to hear about in a future MDOT in Motion webinar or in a news blast, again, you can put that into our survey. But to get to our agenda for today, we are going to first hear about safe routes back to school around the nation, the national framework that's used by the Safe Routes to Schools Partnership and implementers in states across the United States. Then we'll hone in on Maryland. You'll hear more from me about our recent launch of our Safe Routes to School Coordinator pilot. And then we will hit on the ground in Anne Arundel County and hear from a fantastic team that is working with students across their county. And then we will end with a Q&A. As Daniel mentioned, please put your questions in the Q&A box. If you put them in the chat, they tend to kind of get lost. So our presenters for today will start with Corey Johnson from the Safe Routes Partnership. Then you'll hear more from me, and then the Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation's Tanya Asman and Kaylin Pack, and Pedal Power Kids' Rachel Killeen Varn. To start with Corey Johnson serves as a Senior Manager of Program and Engagement at the Safe Routes Partnership. In this role, Corey provides technical assistance to communities across the country that are working to advance safe and equitable transportation options. Corey's personal and professional journeys center on building accessible, inclusive, community-driven spaces that elevate underrepresented voices. Her practice also incorporates arts-based community engagement methods. She's worked on community engagement initiatives in New York City, the Washington, D.C. Metro, and the Bay Area. Corey lives in Baltimore, Maryland. Corey, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. And Meg, can you hear me okay? My video is working. I just want to make sure that audio is okay.
Yep.
Excellent. Hi, everyone. Good morning. It is so nice to be with you for this Safe Routes Back to School MDOT in Motion webinar. As Meg mentioned, my name is Corey Johnson, and I'm with the Safe Routes Partnership. And I can share a little bit about the work that I do, and then a little bit more about me. So if you go to the next slide, if those of you people who are on the call who might not be familiar with the Safe Routes Partnership, we are a national organization, and our mission is really to advance safe walking, biking, and rolling, both to schools, but also everyday places like parks and libraries and grocery stores. But Safe Routes to School is really our main area of focus and expertise, and what I will be talking about today. On the next slide, there's a little bit about me and the work that I do. So as Meg mentioned, I live in Baltimore, Maryland, and was born and raised in Maryland, grew up in Columbia, went to Howard County Public Schools, and I'm always so excited to get to do things in my home state. As somebody who works nationally, it's always a treat to do things that are supporting Safe Routes programs in Maryland. So in my role at the partnership, I do lots of things, but one of the main things that I work on is providing technical assistance to communities to help them advance active transportation goals in their communities. So that can include Safe Routes to School programming, planning, funding, and just making sure that we're really helping you all meet the transportation goals that you've set in your communities. And I'm really thankful to be able to get on the ground and visit some local programs and do activities around Maryland. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So that's a little bit about me and the work that I do. And I'm going to transition in our next slide to talking a bit about what we're seeing nationally, and then actually how we're doing in Maryland when it comes to supporting our Safe Routes to School program. So every 2 years at our organization, we do something, we put together a report called the 2026, or in this case, it's the 2026 state report cards, but generally it's our state report card project. And this is basically a snapshot of how each state is supporting walking, biking, rolling, and active kids in communities. And under that bucket is Safe Routes to School. So you really look at 4 different core topic areas. The first one being complete streets and active transportation planning, federal and state funding for active transportation programs, Safe Routes to School funding and supportive practices, and then active neighborhoods and schools. And so we do a deep dive and a lot of research and look at different states and see, how are we actually doing? How are we supporting Safe Routes to School on a funding level, policy level, program level? And then each state receives a score. So you can either receive a score. Our lowest tier is lacing up. We have, I believe the next one's warming up, making strides, and then building speed. And so I wanted to share a quick snapshot of how we're doing here in Maryland when it comes to our state report cards. So we are in the making strides category. So we're not quite the highest tier with building speed, but we're doing a lot of really great work. So what's going well? We are excelling in complete streets policies and active transportation plans. We actually scored in the highest category, building speed, for our complete streets and active transportation, policies and practices. So that's really exciting and great, and we want to see more of that. There are a lot of areas of opportunities to develop our Safe Routes to School program. So I think that's why this coordinator pilot is so exciting. And we can do this in a number of ways, whether that's just supporting more Safe Routes to School funding, more Safe Routes to School coordinator positions, more Safe Routes to School programs, and more systems and structures to support Safe Routes to School on a statewide level, including developing local Safe Routes to School programs. So again, I think this pilot will be a nice way for us to kind of both boost our score and also boost Safe Routes to School across the state of Maryland. And we have a really strong and great foundation to work with. So my next slide talks a little bit about what Safe Routes to School is. So for those of you who might not be familiar, Safe Routes to School is a national movement and also a program to make it safer, easier, more convenient, and more joyful for kids to walk, bike, roll, and scoot to school. And we really think about this, for students of, across all communities, all ages, abilities, disabilities, races, backgrounds, different geographic settings. So it's not just a big city or suburban program, but there are also a lot of great rural opportunities to support Safe Routes to School programs. The next slide talks a little bit about Safe Routes to School and how we know that it works. So Safe Routes is also an evidence-based program. So we know that Safe Routes to School programs lead to an increase in walking and biking, a decrease in serious bike and pedestrian injuries and fatalities. We also know that kids who walk and bike to school are more physically active and more connected to their friends and peers. The next slide shows a few of the benefits of Safe Routes to School. So we really say that Safe Routes to School actually benefits the entire community, whether that's having climate benefits, improving traffic safety, cost savings, not having to operate a large, bus fleet or spend a lot of money on gas. Community connectedness, so bringing opportunities to walk and bike and be and interact with people in person, and then also just healthier students overall, and just incorporating more opportunities to be physically active over the school day. And the Safe Routes to School program is really built on a 6 E's framework. So that next slide goes into the 6 E's of Safe Routes to School, which include engagement, equity, encouragement, engineering, education, and evaluation. And we really find that a comprehensive approach, so incorporating each one of the 6 E's into Safe Routes to School, is the most effective way to get the most benefits out of the program. The next slide shows a little bit about what Safe Routes to School is looking like here in Maryland. And we found that Montgomery County is actually leading the way in Safe Routes programming for a number of different levels, both from their putting in more safety infrastructure, so things like crosswalk improvements and building sidewalks and some traffic calming, speed calming measures, and also a lot of really fun and exciting non-infrastructure activities, which can include things like walk and roll to school day or public service campaigns, just encouraging more students to walk and bike to school. So we're really hoping to, take some of the great work that's been happening in Montgomery County. Anne Arundel County is doing some really awesome work. Baltimore County is doing some awesome work. Frederick County, other counties across the state of Maryland, and really trying to, grow our Safe Routes programs across the entire state so that all students are benefiting from this program. So the next slide talks about a few different opportunities to try out, pilot, implement Safe Routes to School non-infrastructure activities. And I'm focusing on this today because infrastructure is a huge part of Safe Routes to School. It's super important. We know that infrastructure paired with non-infrastructure is really the best strategy for improving safety and getting more kids walking and rolling to school. We also know that infrastructure takes a lot of time and is expensive, and so for the purposes of this webinar, I wanted to focus on a few ideas you can actually implement in the coming months, this fall, that don't involve some of those larger infrastructure opportunities. Though those exist and they're great, and we should still be pursuing them, I'm going to talk a little bit about some non-infrastructure solutions for Safe Routes to School. So there are a few actually coming up over the next few months, whether that's Walk and Roll to School Day, Bike and Roll to Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. I'll talk about that in a minute. Bike and Roll to School Day is in May. We also see communities doing things like having walking programs, walking school buses, walking Wednesdays has become really popular. Also bike safety events like, bike rodeos, bike skills, events and programs have been taking up in popularity over the last few years. So I wanted to share a few examples, concrete examples of things you can do this fall to get involved in supporting Safe Routes to School programs in Maryland. My next slide is our first opportunity coming up on October 7th. So coming quick, but still plenty of time to plan. A walk and roll to school day is a really great opportunity to, get more kids thinking about walking, rolling to school. This is an image of a walk and roll to school day celebration 2 years ago. Actually, at my former elementary school in Columbia, I went back and did a little walk to school day with the students, which was a lot of fun. The next two slides just show really two like little quick clips of what walk and roll to school day can actually look like. So we can play those, and if there's not audio, that's fine. So as you can see, students have, music and signs, and it's nice, like really fun, celebratory way to encourage students to walk and bike to school. This was the school's first time doing a walk and roll to school day activity, and it was actually planned by the PE teacher. And the next slide, I think there's another little short clip here. This is a student with a sign walking with the school principal, which I thought was really cute and fun. Yes, like as you can see, it's just, kids walking to school and holding hands. I think that social connection piece and that fun factor is a really great way to start supporting Safe Routes, Safe Routes programs. I see in the chat a note about the signs and the music. Just like some simple signs on a little banner, and the PE teacher actually had a rolling speaker and was playing music as they were walking to school. So I thought that was really fun and a great example of like a really kind of like simple introductory activity to Safe Routes to School. I'll also say I know that Columbia is a pretty walkable and bikeable community, but we see a lot of amazing walk and roll to school day celebrations in communities that might not have a lot of the walking and biking infrastructure. So there are some communities that might do a walk to school day, on their campus. So they walk, around the school track, or they might, meet at a local library and then walk to school together, bike to school together. So there are lots of ways to do this in different settings, but I did want to point that out. So again, that is coming up on October 7th. We have lots of resources about how to implement walk and roll to school day activities, but that's a really great entry activity if you're just getting started on Safe Routes to School. The next one I wanted to share on the next slide is another really exciting initiative that started with a group of students in California who wanted to celebrate Ruby Bridges and her courageous walk to school, and then pair that with a Safe Routes to School walk to school day event. And so every November 14th, students across the country celebrate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. And again, this is to honor Ruby Bridges and her historic walk to school, and also encourage students to think about how they can be positive change makers in their community. So this event is coming up in November. November 14th this year actually falls on a Saturday, so we're observing this event on Wednesday, November 18th. And this is a picture of students at Great Mills High School in Great Mills, Maryland. I believe that's St. Mary's County, celebrating Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day. If you go to the next slide, I'll show a few more examples of celebrations over the past few years here in Maryland. So I mentioned they're the high school students. They actually did their walk on their school track. So again, thinking about how to do this type of work in different environments. They wanted to do a walk around the track and celebrate that way. And they had banners and T-shirts, and had a really great celebration. And it was also a great opportunity to involve more high school students in Safe Routes programs. And the focus of this event was actually on mental health and safe routes to school. I'm thinking about a lot of students struggling with social isolation and not feeling connected with their peers. And so they took this opportunity to think about how to frame safe routes and being positive change makers from a mental health angle, and really encouraging students to get out and be active and connect with their peers. On the left, this is a group of students at Duckett's Lane Elementary in Elkridge, Maryland, which is where my mom works. So I actually went to the celebration with her and her students. And these are students reading a Ruby Bridges story walk, which is basically printing out pages of a children's book, and you can set it along a walking route and kids can read it as they walk to school or the library. So these students just did a walk around the school building and then walked right into class, which was really great. And then on the bottom, we have a few other examples. There's another story walk example from a school in Tacoma Park in Maryland, Rolling Terrace Elementary School. Student artwork, so along with the walking and rolling piece, there's a opportunity to kind of do some creative artwork and creating banners and signs. The other picture is a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day display at a school in Mount Rainier. And then lastly, one thing that we're really trying to do here in Maryland is grow Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day across the state and have it be officially recognized by our legislators. So we've been working for the past few years and going to Annapolis to try to gain some statewide support for Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day and to have an official statewide designation that'll say that November 14th is Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day across the state of Maryland. And we've been inspired because other states have done this. California, where the event first started, New Jersey, Oregon. And so we're hoping that Maryland can be another leader in this Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day movement. So if this activity or this idea sounds of interest to you, we have a funding opportunity. So each year we provide mini grants to communities to help them start or celebrate Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day in their community. We're going to drop the application in the chat, but applications are open now. Schools can apply, school districts can apply, nonprofits, local government agencies, libraries, and we're offering mini grants in the amount of $500 or $1,000 to support a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day celebration in your community. So again, this is a really great way to kind of do a safe routes event or activity this fall. The funding is pretty flexible. We don't say exactly what you have to use it for. People have used it for printing, food, volunteer stipends, printing out banners, giving away, incentives, helmets, whatever you would want to do to, kind of help support the celebration that you want to host in your community. And we just invite you to join the movement, whether that's Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day, whether that's safe routes to school in general. Again, there are a lot of really great, exciting opportunities happening here in Maryland. And I think that these are two really great ones to get started with this fall. So we hope to see you there. And then lastly, I did want to share that we have here at the Safe Routes Partnership, every other year we host a national Safe Routes to School conference. So this is where people from all across the country who are, running or part of Safe Routes to School programs, we all come together as a full community and share, best practices and strategies and connect in person. So we will be in Minneapolis this year from October 20th to the 22nd. Registration is open. We have more information on our conference website as well, which is in the chat. So that's a very quick introduction to Safe Routes in Maryland and a little bit about me and the work that I'm doing to support Safe Routes. My email address is right here. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Like I said, I really love to support Safe Routes programs in Maryland. I'm happy to have a chat with you, come out and support a program, offer ideas and advice. So any way that I can be of help to you, please let me know. And I will also be available at the end if you all have any questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Corey. It's so great to have you here in Maryland, so you can be on the ground, even though you're working with the national partnership. I'm like, oh, we're rich here in Maryland to have you.
Yeah, Maryland has my heart. So anything I can do to help Safe Routes in Maryland, I am happy to do it.
All right, so let's hit on the ground in Maryland. Hi, everyone. I'm back again. My name is Meg Young. I'm our Deputy Director of Active Transportation and Micromobility here at MDOT. And Safe Routes to Schools was actually where I got my start in working in transportation. When I was living in the city of New Orleans, I helped relaunch the Safe Routes to School program and helped train some of the first crossing guards post Hurricane Katrina. So it has a special place in my heart. So for you who are maybe tuning in from across the country, first of all, welcome to Maryland. We are a state of 6.2 million residents, and 1.3 million residents are under 18. So that is the focus of our Safe Routes to Schools program. They attend over 1,400 public schools across the state, not to mention our private schools as well. And the needs of all of these schools and all of these students vary pretty greatly. As you can see on this map, our geography and land use really differs from the Eastern Shore, where we have beaches and agricultural lands, to our I-95 corridor, which is our most densely populated area between Metro DC and Baltimore City, and then all the way out into Mountain Maryland, beautiful Mountain Maryland, Garrett County, and Allegheny. So at the state, we are serving a diverse population and diverse land uses. So we have to keep this in mind with our work. So under the Moore-Miller administration, the Maryland Department of Transportation was asked to analyze the ways that we could improve safety and access across the state. So of course, we thought of Safe Routes to Schools. And when we looked at how we've been using this funding, which is federal funding administered by the Maryland Department of Transportation, we noticed there's an increasing amount of ineligible infrastructure grant applications. And since COVID, we'd really seen a reduction in the number of non-infrastructure grant applications. So that means we're seeing fewer applications for engineering projects that were hitting the mark that we could grant federal funding. And then for those non-infrastructure grants, things like education and encouragement, we simply weren't receiving as many applications. So to address this and make sure we're using that funding for Safe Routes to School efficiently, we formed a state agency working group, and through all of our discussions came to the conclusion that launching a coordinator pilot was the best way to tackle both of these issues. This is a model that several other states across the country are using, that we are able to tap into the National Safe Routes to School partnership and see how those most successful states are running Safe Routes to Schools. And so this coordinator option really came to the forefront. So the goal of our coordinator pilot is to increase safety and access for children across Maryland. And up on the top right of your screen, you'll see the E's that Corey mentioned. Safe Routes to Schools relies on education, encouragement, engineering, evaluation, and enforcement, all working together. And of course, the undercurrent of equity, making sure we're serving all students. And it's a community effort. None of these can be done in a silo. So by working with school staff, parent volunteers, municipal officials, and transportation professionals, our goal here is to improve safety for students, ideally increase the number of students that can safely walk and bike to school, and then facilitate planning for future schools and land use to be more efficient, reduce air pollution, reduce congestion, and make that journey to and from school safer for kids. Again, this was a group effort. So we really united under the Moore-Miller administration with our fellow state agencies to say, what can we all bring to the table? It takes a village, and this is an example of that. At the Department of Transportation, we lead this cohort, and we are working to recruit local jurisdictions to join Safe Routes to Schools, and we develop technical assistance materials for them. Our State Highway Administration administers the grants that pay for Safe Routes to Schools in Maryland. So they are the ones making sure we are complying with all applicable federal laws and that we can keep distributing this money and awarding this money to local jurisdictions. And then our Motor Vehicle Administration leads the way with safety grants and safety campaigns for education. Of course, we could not do this without the support of the State Department of Education. They're helping us coordinate with local education agencies. They're the lead on physical education standards and have bus transportation coordinators across the state. The Department of Health takes this seriously as well. They administer walkability programs and have re-geared some of their grants to really focus on safe routes to schools and walking audits around schools. And then the Department of Planning, you've already heard from today, is integrating this work into their Sustainable Growth Subcabinet. They lead the Interagency Commission on Future School Construction. So essential in making sure that we are working within the context of Maryland across the state. So for our first round of coordinators, we awarded Federal Safe Routes to Schools funding to 4 jurisdictions, which is very exciting. On your screen, you'll see another map of Maryland, and in the darker blue are our pilot jurisdictions that are either have already hired or are in the process of hiring Safe Routes to Schools coordinators to lead this work. So Anne Arundel County, you'll hear from today. Baltimore City is currently hiring for a Safe Routes to School coordinator, and I saw somebody just drop the link in the chat. So if you know somebody who wants to lead this exciting work, please send them the way to Baltimore City so they can apply. Howard County and Prince George's County. We already have one county that has an existing coordinator, and that is Montgomery County. Corey shared a few pictures of their work. So they are really leading the way already with implementing safe routes to schools across the county. With these now 5 counties hiring coordinators, we will have 55% of Maryland public schools covered, and 57% of enrolled students will be enrolled in counties that have safe routes to school coordinators. We want to get this to 100%, but when we looked at the population density maps, the crash maps, these were really our target counties, and they all really came to the table because they did have to apply for this funding. They did have to say they want a Safe Routes to School coordinator and put forward a plan of what that coordinator would do to be most effective. So we've had a couple questions in the chat about what different jurisdictions are doing or plan to do. And we hope to get to that later because each county here has their own specific work plan. For the Safe Routes to School coordinator, we do want to support them in achieving their work plan. So we worked with these counties to submit their applications and make the work plan for their coordinator. And from our perspective, the coordinator for Safe Routes to Schools at a county level, their work really falls into 3 different buckets. They can work directly with schools, starting with prioritizing schools that have the most safety issues or might be a designated community school in Maryland. They might have a number of 311 requests for different schools. And once they select the schools they can work with, you start with a walking audit, and then with a school champion, you can develop an action plan for that school that really connects them to resources and takes advantage of what's already available in the community to fix safety issues. The second bucket of work that a coordinator can focus on is community-wide engagement and advocacy. And this is really about creating a culture of safety from a young age. So in Montgomery County, we see a lot of inspiring work with community-wide events, safety days, campaigns, and even student ambassadors who are really involved and help spread the word to their peers. And then the last bucket of work that a Safe Routes to School coordinator can take on is funding and resource coordination. If we think back about how we're getting ineligible grants for Safe Routes to School engineering projects, a coordinator can help change that. They will be embedded in the local Department of Transportation or DP Department of Public Works and be the ones that can help make sure if there is an intersection or a safety issue that really needs an engineering fix, they can lead the way and help prepare that grant and make sure it's eligible for funding. There's also a number of other funding and resources that's available for Safe Routes to School coordinators, so we connect to them to all of those resources along the way. To help our coordinators achieve that, one of the first things that MDOT did was publish a toolkit. And so this is available on our website, mdot.maryland.gov/safe routes to school, SRTS. And the toolkit has a chapter about each of those roles that a coordinator can fill. So it goes pretty in-depth about the way to approach working with a school, or how to launch community-wide events, and then has a funding and resource matrix. In addition to this toolkit, we're also working with our cohort of state agencies and jurisdictions to make sure they have other resources, and really to share best practices, to share all of the national resources that are going to be most applicable to Maryland. So we're currently building this out. We've kind of been previewing some of the materials with our jurisdictions, but we're going to have templates, so school action plans are all similar across Maryland. What you see pictured here is an Anne Arundel County curriculum for bicycle training, and you're going to hear more about this directly from them. But this is a great example of something that has already been made that is specific to Maryland, that other counties could also take bits and pieces of and apply to their context. The clearinghouse will also have activity toolkits, after-school activities, promotional flyers, and data collection resources. And then one of the things that we're most excited to provide to this to Safe Routes to School coordinators is also a dashboard, so they can prioritize projects based on whatever criteria their county or city has selected. So using this dashboard, we're still in a beta version and hope to go live in the coming year. They can explore if a school is a community school. They can explore the context. They can explore the traffic stress on the roadways around the school. And then there's another tab that's pictured here of simply crash data. We are serious about safety at MDOT, and so looking at crashes within the mile buffer around schools can really help you see what it's like or what risks a student might be taking on their journey to school. So the long-term goals of our pilot is to, of course, increase awareness and participation in Safe Routes to Schools. We want to make sure Safe Routes to Schools is seen as a real safety framework that any community can implement. It can be worked into Vision Zero plans and transportation plans to say, we want to prioritize safety around schools as one of our top priorities. We're hoping that with coordinators, we can generate a pipeline of eligible Safe Routes to Schools projects. So those engineering projects that meet the mark for federal funding eligibility. And then eventually we want to establish a self-sustainable Safe Routes to Schools program in communities across Maryland and really have this be, again, a culture shift so that everybody is taking the safety of children and these journeys to and from school seriously. So if you're interested in joining Maryland Safe Routes to Schools, no matter who you are, any community member can really be involved in making the journey safer for kids. Parents and families, the best thing to do is work with your school and within their existing systems. Of course, teach the importance of safety from a young age, but then if you work with the PTA and the staff, you can see what activities they're already planning, what circulation plans and policies are in place, or you could help spread the word about. And then consider options like carpooling, walking, and rolling to school. Community members, of course, respect school zones. The number one thing you can do for safety is to slow down when you see a school zone, when you see a school bus, and help create that culture of safety, to take it seriously. There's often volunteer roles that schools might be looking for. Again, reaching out to a PTA or a school can help you find those. And in some communities, crossing guards might be volunteers with the school, or they might be hired by the local Office of Transportation. And then, of course, supporting, donating, and sponsoring any safety events in the community. And for local jurisdictions in Maryland, please apply for a coordinator in our next round of funding. You can include Safe Routes to Schools in a framework and different transportation plans that will make all applications more competitive. If we see you've listed Safe Routes to Schools as a tactic for Vision Zero, or school zones are a priority for safety improvements, that's always going to help an application to be funded. And then if you're serious about applying for a coordinator, please come out to one of our Grants Roadshow events, reach out to us for guidance about the application, and then we anticipate our next round of applications for funding will be in the spring. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to one of our jurisdictions that's been awarded funding, and they can hit it with on the ground in Anne Arundel County, how they plan on implementing safe routes to schools. From Anne Arundel County, we have Tanya Asman and Kaylin Pack from the Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation. And then we have Rachel Colleen Varn from Pedal Power Kids, who's implementing their bike and pedestrian safety curriculum. Tanya, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Meg. That was a lot of great information. As Meg said, my name is Tanya Asman. I am the senior planner at the Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation in charge of active transportation. I've been with the county for 18 years and in my current role for 8. And I wear many hats here, including chairing Vision Zero, helping to identify capital projects, and Safe Routes to School. We've been performing Safe Routes to School activities sort of in silos without a coordinator. You know, we've been working with the local MPO to bring their educational efforts to the county. We do our infrastructure analysis through our accessibility studies that we've done. But everything has been, like I said, kind of a little bit disjointed because we didn't have one centralized person to sort of spearhead the effort. Next slide. So to give you a little bit of background, as for the origins of this coordinator position, it goes back to our Transportation Functional Master Plan, which was adopted in 2019. Where it specifically called out that we should establish a Safe Routes to School coordinator in the Office of Transportation, who is charged with bringing together all the relevant agencies necessary to deploy Safe Routes to School strategies. Next slide. That functional master plan, Move Anne Arundel, informed the General Development Plan from 2020, which was adopted in 2021, which in turn incorporated these recommendations into the General Development Plan as well. Next slide. So going back to the recommendations from Move Anne Arundel, it states that a priority is to make Anne Arundel County more walkable and propose that a good measure of walkability of a community is whether a parent will let their child walk to school alone or in a group when the school is within the established walk zones. By starting with the benchmark of children and the trip to school, communities can become safe places for everyone to walk and bike. If this standard can be met, then most other important community facilities and commercial areas are also likely to be walkable. So Move Anne Arundel identified 17 elementary schools in the more dense areas of the county, and the schools were chosen based on the number of students bused within the allowable radius of a school, which is a half mile for kindergarten, 1 mile for elementary, and 1.5 miles for middle and high school. But they couldn't due to a lack of safe, suitable walkway. Next slide. So the county contracted with Tool Design, who studied, performed the 17 accessibility studies at the elementary schools, and also subcontracted with Pedal Power Kids to create and deliver a safety training curriculum. This was the product of a Safe Routes to School grant that was obtained in 2018 by the Office of Transportation. The studies examined the infrastructure within the existing walk zones as well as outside the walk zones, crash data, arrival and dismissal observations, and polled parents regarding why they let their kids walk, or more importantly, why they don't. Reports made recommendations on additional infrastructure that may include sidewalks, enhanced crossings or signage, and ADA improvements, and made recommendations on education or encouragement activities. We completed the studies in 2023 and are currently wrapping up a phase 2, which is looking at 10 more elementary and 10 middle schools, altogether for 37 schools. The other big component of our effort was the safety training, which we've now completed 3 years worth of, the first of which was through the Safe Routes to School grant, and then 2 more sponsored by the Maryland Highway Safety Office grant. So, like I said, all of these efforts were happening sort of in silos without the umbrella of a Safe Routes to School coordinator. So when I went to last year's grant roadshow and heard them speaking of it, my ears perked up and was thrilled to become one of the awardees. So you'll hear more from Kaylin on her efforts as she begins her journey as our new Safe Routes to School coordinator. But first I wanted to introduce Rachel, who develops and delivers our safety training program. Rachel.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Tanya. My name is Rachel Varn. I am the founder and owner of Pedal Power Kids. And we've been delighted to partner with Anne Arundel County for the last 4 years to deliver bicycle and pedestrian safety instruction in the elementary schools. We are able to, within a 1-week residency, we were able to reach all students in K through 5 and who receive either pedestrian safety instruction or and then 3rd through 5th grade, which receives bicycle safety instruction. We've refined the program each year. So we started, as Tanya mentioned, in the first year of the pilot with 8 schools. And then I believe we had 6 and then 5 in the 3rd year. So we've been able to sort of refine the program to make it one that is not only very impactful for students, but is also a low lift, easy for the schools. There's a lot of demands on school administrators, on PE teachers. And I think one of the reasons that we've been so successful is that we are able to come in, things are very turnkey. Really all the schools need to provide us with is a gym that we can use for the week that we're on site, a storage closet for our equipment, which are the bikes, and a PE teacher who will partner with us to help deliver the program optimally. Next slide, please. Oh, back to, sorry. Okay, so to tell you a little bit about the curriculum and the way that it works, for grades 3 through 5, we actually use the gym to set up a sort of a mock road scenario. So we set up a full bike safety course with a lot of traffic signage where they can practice things like stopping and turning and turn signals and yielding and all sorts of important skills and concepts. And so we do that primarily using tape on the floor, signs and cones. So those 3rd through 5th graders receive instruction about ABC Quick Check and helmet fitting. We teach them a little bit about basic traffic laws. And then all the students do get time on bike to actually ride the course, which is, of course, a highlight. We can deliver this in either a 30-minute format or an hour format. So each one of the each class receives an hour of PE during the course of the week. And so depending on the school, that might be broken up into 2 classes or it may be a full hour block. We've modified the curriculum so that we can do it either way, which is really important. What we found is that the less we have to change the regular schedule at that school, the easier it is to deliver the program and the better it is received. Students who are not riding the course have the opportunity to be peer coaches. So they're traffic safety officers along the course and they're observing and they are providing feedback to their peers. And we found that to be really impactful as well. We also have added this year some interactive skills stations so that our students who are not actually riding at the time have a chance to practice fitting helmets on mannequins. They learn how to fix a chain, put back a drop chain, and how to pump tires. And they really, really love that. And that just really gets them engaged and it's very hands-on and very physical. So within that either 2 30-minute block or that 1 hour block, all of the students have the opportunity to be in each one of those roles. And as I mentioned earlier, We provide the bikes. So we provide a variety of sizes of bikes. We're able to adapt that to kids who are not pedaling independently. So we teach them how to use the balance method to glide through. And we typically have optimally about 6 or 7 students actually on the bikes riding at the same time. If there's any more than that, it is just too crowded to actually really be able to practice. So that's why we sort of rotate them through the different stations. Next slide, please. We'll talk about the pedestrian safety instruction. So for our students in kindergarten through 2nd grade, they receive pedestrian safety instruction. They see the bikes and they're very excited and hope they're going to have the opportunity when they get a little older to be part of the bike safety. But the pedestrian safety curriculum consists of a story and lesson, which is where we introduce safe walking concepts. And then we do some really fun movement activities for practice. One thing we found that's been important is that because there is such limited PE time, we really don't want to take that away from our students. We want to keep them moving. So we have found creative ways to deliver this content while they're actually moving and while they are doing some of the things that they might do in a typical PE class anyway. And then the last part of our pedestrian safety program is actually outdoor walk practice. We stay typically on the school grounds. We have an opportunity to try practicing safe crossings at crosswalks. We have an opportunity to identify where students may be arriving at school if they are walkers, where safe places to walk are. We can point out signage and so forth. That's something that they really, really love and makes things feel a lot more tangible. Next slide. So as I've mentioned, this will be our 4th year. And so we've been able to really refine based on feedback from all of the stakeholders. So based on feedback from the students and parents themselves, from the administration at each school, from the PE teachers. So that's really where we've settled on the fact that this 1-week residency works really, really well. That way, every student in the school has the opportunity. And now with Kaylin on board, we have a lot of opportunity to go beyond just what we're able to do during the residency and tie in other safe routes to school activities. So sometimes stakeholders from the school will be interested in could they do a weekend bike safety rodeo to sort of supplement what we've been working on? Could they implement a bike bus or other walking events? And so we're really excited to now have the opportunity to sort of tie in support related activities. We've found that the PE teacher involvement is really critical to the success of this program in the school. So we've developed and refined the materials that we use to help our PE teachers feel ready to support us in this program. They obviously are going to know the students better than we ever could. And because we've got a lot of information to cover in a pretty short period of time, they're able to help us with some of the classroom management aspects as well. We've continued to increase the movement activities each year and the interactive elements. We find that kids really want to get hands-on. They absolutely love actually being able to work on the bikes a little bit, being able to put air in their own tires. It feels really, really empowering, and we're excited to continue to even build on that more. One thing we found is that there is a pretty large percentage of students in 3rd through 5th grade who are not able to pedal their bikes independently, which comes as no surprise to me because my core business at Pedal Power Kids is running Learn to Ride programs for kids. And we know that kids of all socioeconomic levels are riding at lower and lower levels. And so we would love to have the opportunity, as we have in a few community schools so far, to actually bring in some Learn to Ride programming so we can get kids riding independently, and then we can layer in the safety component. So that's another opportunity for expansion and ways that we can really further these programs, because the desire to ride to school is absolutely there. The kids love it. They can't wait for us to come back and want to keep riding. We also are looking for opportunities to tie in our curriculum into some of their classroom activities through STEM, through writing. There's a lot of opportunities to sort of build on what we've started. So we are looking forward to another great year of the Bike and Pedestrian Safety Program in Anne Arundel County Public Schools. And we know that really is going to be taken to the next level with the addition of Kaylin as our Safe Routes to School coordinator. So I'm going to turn it over to her from here.
Thank you, Rachel. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So my name is Kaylin Pack, and I am super, super excited to be Anne Arundel County's new Safe Routes to School coordinator. As mentioned before, this is a grant-funded position by the Transportation Alternatives Program, and it's really an honor to be a part of the pilot program that MDOT is running in 2026. So as Meg mentioned before, every county submitted an application for the coordinator, and within that application, different counties put in different sort of visions and requirements that they would like their coordinator to fulfill. So some of ours for Anne Arundel County are, of course, assembling a countywide plan/program, creating a Safe Routes to School task force on the county level, and of course, managing all of the grant details and administrative side. So I've been referencing the MDOT Safe Routes to School Coordinator Toolkit very heavily. It is a fantastic resource. I really recommend people to check it out. Even if you're not, going to be a countywide coordinator, in that toolkit, there are a ton of great resources and a lot of things to be inspired by. Next slide, please. So some of the benchmarks that we put in our application, just to kind of guide the position, help me figure out, okay, what are the concrete things we're really looking to do in the county. So these are 4 of those items, and these apply every year. So we're looking to create at least 4 school-specific Safe Routes to School action plans. These will have sort of concrete infrastructure and non-infrastructure recommendations, as well as timelines that the schools can aim to follow. We're hoping to also implement the bicycle and pedestrian safety training for at least 10 elementary schools per year. We're looking to attend and organize at least 5 education/outreach events a year, and also, of course, applying for at least 1 to 2 infrastructure and non-infrastructure grants every year. And so on this slide, you can see some photos from when we partnered with the Baltimore Metropolitan Council's Look Alive campaign, which focuses on educating people on pedestrian and bicyclist safety and traffic laws. So here are just some photos from their lovely outreach team. Next slide, please. So as mentioned before, one of the sort of core parts of my role is to just get all of the different agencies and departments that are involved in safe walking and biking all together, just to consolidate all the resources and the efforts that we're already doing. So on this slide, I've put some of the logos of the different departments and agencies that we've already started to coordinate with. I guess just to kind of go through them in case the text is a little bit small. So of course we have our County Office of Transportation. We're coordinating very closely with Anne Arundel County Public Schools, our County Department of Public Works, Department of Health, our Police Department, our Office of Planning and Zoning, our Fire Department, as well as the City of Annapolis. And there are some other agencies that we've been coordinating with that aren't even listed on this slide. So I think I kind of want to show people how much, has already been done throughout the county. I'm still in my first month, but I've really just been spending it trying to understand what's already been done. And I feel like every day I sort of discover a new little pocket of some amazing Safe Routes to School or walking and biking effort that people have done, but people just don't know about because there hasn't been a centralized resource that sort of consolidates it all. So, we've had Tanya at the Office of Transportation who's been applying for all these grants. We have Rachel, who's taught literally thousands of kids how to walk and bike safely throughout the years. The police department has also done these sorts of e-bike safety trainings at different schools. And we also have the Department of Health that is, has their own initiatives to try to improve student mental, social, and physical health through walking and biking. So it's just been really fun to coordinate with all these different agencies and learn more about how we can really band together to have an organized Safe Routes to School effort throughout the county. Next slide, please. So in terms of recent updates, we've been mainly spending this first month sort of starting this process of relationship building, because relationships and these partnerships are really what are going to sustain the program. So I've been meeting with, of course, these county and city agencies, local community partners such as Rachel, also with community schools managers. And in case you don't know, community schools is this program that tries to leverage different community partnerships to sort of support students with a more sort of holistic approach, with a more family, community-oriented approach. So some of these schools have community schools managers, which sort of operate similarly to me in that they're building these relationships, leveraging these partnerships, and sort of just acting as a coordinator for all these different resources to support their students. I've also been getting advice from other Safe Routes to School coordinators, talking with Duwan Morris, who manages the incredible Montgomery County Safe Routes to School program, as well as Meg, who of course started the New Orleans Safe Routes to School program. I've also been attending different trainings and meetings. I attended a crossing guard training that the police department was hosting last week. And right now we're focusing on preparing to get out into the community a bit more and tabling at upcoming back to school events. So on this side, you can just see some of the different pictures with what we've been up to, the community schools, back to school, and picture of a crossing guard. Next slide, please. And we've also started a mailing list. So on this side, you can see a screenshot of what it looks like. It's really, really simple. All you gotta do is put in your email, and then any other comments that you have related to Safe Routes to School, this will be used to notify people on events, upcoming grants, progress reports, and all other updates. So if you have any sort of suggestions for Anne Arundel County Safe Routes to School, if you'd like to connect, or if you'd just like to stay tuned, please fill out this mailing list form. And yeah, I'd love to keep everybody posted and learn more about all the amazing efforts that have already been done in the county. So I think that there was a hyperlink that was dropped in the chat. Yes, and so yeah, I'm just so excited to be a part of this pilot program and continue all of the wonderful efforts that have already been done in Anne Arundel County. That's it for me.
Right. Thank you so much, Kaylin. We are all so excited to have you on board. And thank you to Tanya and Rachel for really paving the way for you to hit the ground running. I'll invite all of our panelists to come back on screen. We now can get into the Q&A, and we have some great questions I've been trying to group together. The one thing I meant to say about the Anne Arundel County presentation is really that you're showing how everyone's so invested in getting this work done already. The fact that you're already getting all of these stakeholders together, and what we needed on the ground is somebody to do the work, to get the work done more efficiently. We needed Kaylin. All right, so if you have not put your Q&A into the question and answer blocks, please go ahead and put it there. We've been trying to capture things from the chat, but we're going to go with the things that were in the box. And the first big bucket of questions we had was all about funding. And so I realized we left off one of our more technical slides about how this funding works. So the questions, one group is, do counties get funding to pay for a county coordinator? And how do they use TAP funding to support a Safe Routes to School coordinator? So funding available for Safe Routes to Schools is made available through federal funding under the Transportation Alternatives Program. And it's also an eligible project category under what's called HSIP, which is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. So these are federal funding programs that are available in states throughout the country. But they are competitive grants. So this is why we've mentioned that our pilot jurisdictions did have to apply for the funding. A lot of federal transportation funding is really only for infrastructure projects, building something for the transportation system. But Safe Routes to Schools is unique as a federal funding category that it can also pay for non-infrastructure. So the salary of a coordinator is included in that. It does require a 20% match. So out of 100% of the funding, the federal funding can pay for 80%, and then the local county or the applicant for the grant pays for 20%. Now, Tanya, I know you had to figure out how to pay for that 20%. How did you manage to have that conversation with your county and make sure you could do the match requirement to hire Kaylin?
Well, we have a couple of buckets of funding in our capital improvement program. One is the Sidewalk Bikeway Fund, which is kind of a revolving program that it gets funded every year. So we were planning to use the 20% or use that to meet the 20%.
Okay. Yeah, so you had to probably present this to your budget to say we want to use this funds for that.
Yes, sorry. Yes, it has to go to county council.
Oh, wow. Went all the way up to county council.
They have to approve. I mean, typically what happens is there's an amendment because oftentimes the budget's already been approved. And we have to go back and ask for amendments.
Sure. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Meg, can I share one more note about this since I know there are people outside of Maryland too? So
Definitely.
I'll drop the link to the state report cards again in the chat. But basically, as each state kind of figures out how they run their TAP competition, and so there are some states that just fund Safe Routes to School infrastructure projects. There are some states that fund Safe Routes to School infrastructure and non-infrastructure, and there's some states that even will have eliminated the match requirement or will fund part of the match to make it easier, especially for smaller or rural communities to get Safe Routes funding. So in the state report cards, if you go to your state, there's a section under the Safe Routes to School funding and supportive practices that show if your state funds Safe Routes to School in non-infrastructure projects and if they do any sort of like match assistance or eliminate the match for TAP projects. So I definitely encourage you all to check out and see what's happening in your state. If you have any specific questions about how TAP runs in your state or understanding the state report cards, feel free to email me. I'll put my information in the chat. But yeah, just wanted to let you all outside of Maryland know that your state might be a little bit different as far as how you're funding Safe Routes projects and using that TAP funding. So I'll drop my email here.
Thanks, Corey. Yes, I'm very much speaking on behalf of the Maryland landscape when we talk about funding. So another question related to funding said, you mentioned Safe Routes to Schools funding. Does that include education efforts? What are we talking about? And so that TAP funding is what we're talking about for the Safe Routes to Schools coordinator salary. And with that application, they can also include other non-infrastructure activities in Maryland. We fund that, including education efforts. And then the other pot of money that we use for Safe Routes to School education efforts is administered by our MVA, the Highway Safety Office, and they have safety grants available for safety education. Tanya, are there any other sources of funding that you use for more education efforts?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm being attacked by a cat. Or my computer is. She doesn't like the competition. Yes, we have used the Maryland Highway Safety Office primarily for the safety training for the last 2 years. We also often you said for just education though?
Yeah, there was a question specifically about education efforts, for funding education efforts.
Yeah, we've primarily relied on the Maryland Highway Safety Office grant for those kinds of efforts. More infrastructure sometimes is bikeways.
And then a question about funding that I think was specific for Corey, who has this national perspective. What is the impact on federal Safe Routes to School funding from the US DOT pullback on safe bike and ped funding policies?
Yeah, so I can talk to that. So another arm of our work at the Safe Routes Partnership is that we work on federal policy. So we have a federal policy manager who is in DC and on the Hill and constantly talking to our legislators, making sure that safe routes remains a priority and funded at the federal level. So our understanding of the kind of like the federal landscape of Safe Routes to School funding specifically is that Safe Routes to School actually has a lot of bipartisan support, which is really exciting. It's one of those things that we weren't really sure how it was gonna go, but we found that people across the country and in all communities are really supportive of Safe Routes to School, and that a lot of legislators like this program and wanted to continue, partially because they get a lot of great feedback from their community saying, "I like this program. I like being able to walk to school. I like having sidewalks. I like having teaching biking to my students." So I asked our federal policy manager, what are things that we can do as regular people to keep safe routes going? And she said one of the most effective things that she's been able to do when she's on the Hill is being able to go to, a congressperson and say, hey, you supported this project, and here are the results. So you supported this project, and now there's a bike lane, now there's a sidewalk, now there's a safe routes to school program. So a lot of the elected officials and legislators really like to see that a project that they supported is actually being implemented and enjoyed by by their constituents. So I would say that if you're somebody who supports safe routes to school, continue to gather those examples, show that the community supports it, let your legislators know that the community supports it, and also share it with us, because we take those stories directly to the Hill and say, look, your constituents are saying that they really like safe routes to school programs, or this has been really impactful and in improving safety. We'd love for you to continue to support this. So like I said, there's still a lot of bipartisan support for this, even if there might not be a lot of bipartisan support for walking and biking in general. Safe routes to school and programs that support kids and families have been very popular under this administration, and we expect that to continue over the next few years and hopefully longer than that. So yeah, those are a few quick examples of things you can do to make sure that your legislators keep supporting safe routes to school.
Thanks, Corey. I agree that kids getting to and from school tends to be nonpartisan. It is something that ideally everyone can rally behind. Questions about the number of counties and if a city rather than a county could apply for federal dollars administered by the state. Yes, we are open to safe routes to schools. Applications through the Transportation Alternatives Program is open to schools. It's open to nonprofits. It's open to local jurisdictions, but they have to comply with these federal requirements. And so because there are some onerous requirements to navigate, we would encourage anyone in Maryland who's looking to hire a coordinator to reach out to us. We know we do have a couple of cities and towns who are also interested. Okay, I'm going to move us away from funding. And I wanted to bring Rachel back into the conversation. Rachel, we had a couple questions about your program. For kids who are too young to bike, perhaps, someone had a question, and you mentioned the pedestrian program. Do you also do anything with the push scooters that are really popular with young kids? And then do you work at all in Baltimore City?
We definitely work in Baltimore City. Actually, here and actually in Baltimore right now, at one of our camps. So we have the ability to really work anywhere in the state. Um, we don't offer any specific programming for push scooters. Push scooters that would, I guess, primarily be used on sidewalks. So I think a lot of the applicable lessons for pedestrian safety would also be valid. We definitely talk to kids about scooters because a lot of just anecdotally, a lot of students mention that they use scooters.
And then moving up from those push scooters, we had two questions about e-bike and e-scooter education. And I can jump in on that. E-bikes and e-scooters are really becoming more and more popular in Maryland and across the US. We've seen exponential growth in e-bikes and e-scooters. And then unfortunately, some vehicles that don't meet the vehicle requirements for e-bikes and e-scooters. And that's where we're seeing a lot of real safety issues with these vehicles that go a lot faster than a legal vehicle would. And so we've been working in Maryland with a number of people who are concerned about this, public health professionals, local jurisdictions. And in Anne Arundel County, it's actually one of your police officers who's a corporal and focuses on traffic safety, has gone out to schools and talked to them about e-bikes and e-scooters, how to know if your child is riding something that is legal and safe. So we've really been inspired by these efforts by people like Corporal Cataldi, and are actually going to be publishing a kind of suite of materials focused at e-bike and e-scooter education for young people. They're overrepresented in crash data. And so we've been inspired by those local examples, and then as well, the Children's National Hospital shared an e-bike family agreement and checklist that through our Safe Routes to School working group, we'll be able to share to local education agencies and see if there's interest in having more specific education, but at least getting out that information of making sure you have a legal vehicle and are talking to your kids about what they're riding, because it's great to have these new vehicles as an option, but we're finding with just the rapid uptick in different types of vehicles, some people aren't aware of the safety issues with what their children are riding. So I'd say stay tuned and make sure you're having those conversations with young people in your life, that if it is a class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike, you can be sure it is certified with some safety requirements. But sometimes what you buy online is being falsely advertised as an e-bike when it's not.
We've also done a few e-bike webinars and have some additional resources we've gathered from across the country. And I think this is a really good time to be talking about it too, because a lot of families will be thinking about buying e-bikes for the holidays. And so there are some communities that do a lot of messaging or public service campaigns around the holidays, like, before you click buy, make sure that you know what it is you're buying and the different, safety considerations. So I'm happy to share some other e-bike materials as well. And exciting that we're thinking about this in Maryland too, because I know it's something we've been seeing across the board. And there are some great materials that exist, and I'm sure there will be more to come.
Yeah. If you want any of these materials and, maybe are losing track of some of the links in the chat, please feel free to email us at this email that's on the screen, completestreets@mdot.maryland.gov, so we can follow up on any of these as well, because, yes, we have a lot of good resources. Okay. This, I think, is a quick one. With walk and roll to school days here in Maryland, are there particular days or anything to be aware of? At MDOT, we'll be sharing a flyer with all of the county local education agencies, and the official day is October 7th. But if you want to have a walk to school day any other day, that works too. Walkandrolltoschool.org is the national registration page, but any walk in October really counts as Walk and Roll to School Day. And if you let us know as soon as you start planning, we have different materials we can provide. Our biggest hit is Cheswick the Crab, an actual crab mascot that will come to schools. but he can only be in one place at one time. So let us know if your school is doing something big, and we can see how we can support. Okay, I saw you flagged this one, Corey, for answering. What about older middle school and high school students in Baltimore that use the MTA? How does school choice affect their journey? And is there a specific way to set up safe routes to school in West Baltimore? And I'll just start by saying someone put the link in the chat, but Baltimore City is hiring a coordinator to be the one to really focus on these issues. But I know you had more to say, Corey.
Yeah, I was just going to say about, older, middle school students, high school students, really like, any student that might be traveling to school outside of their, school zone. I know that there's school choice and charter schools. We've seen programs do a few things. So one is kind of like thinking about incorporating transit into safe routes to school. So safe routes to transit, making sure that the route between, home and the bus or the bus to the library or wherever students are going is safe. And also incorporating transit training into their safe routes program. So like, how do you ride the bus? What happens if something, if a safety issue occurs, and, how do you handle that? Making sure that students and families know about transit travel and transit safety. So that's been one way that, that communities have kind of addressed students might be traveling on transit. And then also having more safe routes to school programs at the school campus. So if they're, walking programs or biking programs, doing it, around the block, or in some of our rural schools, they'll do something in the field or on the track to just get more students thinking about, walking and biking safely. Setting up like traffic garden projects, that's been another one. So traffic gardens, like these little mini street networks that teach kids how to ride bikes safely, usually away from cars. So installing traffic gardens. But yeah, there are lots of ways to incorporate transit into safe routes to school. And when we talk about walking, biking, and rolling, we do know that transit is a big part of some students, school journey. And so it's not like transit is excluded from a safe routes to school program. There's some great examples from New Orleans and Alameda County, California, that I can drop in the chat too, around how programs have incorporated transit into their safe routes to school program, both from a safety angle and also like a climate friendly, climate focused transportation options. And I can drop those in the chat.
Great. And for Baltimore City specific, if any of these ideas Corey mentioned sounds like something you want to see happen as soon as their coordinator is hired, say take note. Make sure you're telling your school principal the safety issues along the way. Make sure you're putting in a 311 request when there is a safety issue, because the person that they hire is definitely going to be looking at all of the safety issues that have already been reported, to make sure that they're tackling all of the known issues. We are
and I live
coming
in Baltimore, so email me. Sorry for the Baltimore question. Feel free to email me and we can chat.
Yep. We're coming up on our time, so I am going to put us up on our last slide, which is just a big thank you to everyone who attended today for caring about how kids get to and from school. We have a number of upcoming Safe Routes to School dates that Corey shared from the Ruby Bridges mini grant application, Walk and Roll to School Day, the national conference, and then from MDOT, if you want to stay in touch with us, please subscribe to our MDOT in Motion listserv to make sure you'll get our eBlast news update in September. As well as in October, we turn to Walktober. Walk and Roll to School Day is just one of our celebrations to celebrate walking in Maryland. Walking is our state exercise, and we celebrate National Pedestrian Safety Month throughout October. So, any closing words from our panelists before we close here today?
No, just thank you for having me and for putting on this webinar. I think that I learned a lot about what's happening in the state and also other places in the chat. It's great to see that engagement. Like I said, feel free to email me if you have questions about what's happening either in Maryland or nationally. I'm always happy to chat and answer questions. And yeah, just thanks to Maryland DOT for putting this together, and Anne Arundel County and Rachel, all the work that you all are doing. It's really inspiring. Yeah, I'm just happy to stay connected with everybody.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that. Thank you, Meg, for putting together this whole program. We're so excited to be involved.
Too.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
I can't wait for Walk and Roll to School Day. Not only is this program impactful, but it's also just cute and fun. So wishing everybody a good afternoon and safe back to school, whether you're in Maryland or across the nation. Thank you all for joining.